Valletta is a distinguished city with a legendary past. The UNESCO-listed capital of Malta stands proudly on one of Europe's grandest harbours, overlooking the Mediterranean Sea and surrounded by some of the mightiest fortifications in the world. The city's history is tied to the Knights of St. John of Jerusalem, an 11th century order that provided shelter for pilgrims in the Holy Land and took on a military role to defend Christianity. In 1530, the Spanish king Charles V gave Malta to the Knights. Once Valletta became the new military fortress of the Order of St. John, the Knights set out to create a capital city equal to Europe's finest. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at the top 10 rated attractions and things to do in Valletta. And just wait till you see the number one that we're going to be showing in this video, something you would never even have thought of, so make sure you watch till the end. Now, before we begin, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more awesome travel guides and make sure to hit the notification bell so that you know when we publish a new video. So, if you're ready, let's cut to the chase. At number 10, explore the Valletta waterfront. Overlooked by many tourists, the Valletta waterfront is a popular spot among locals. This is one of the best places to visit in Valletta for an atmospheric meal by the harbour. The row of Baroque buildings along the Marsamxett harbour was commissioned in the 18th century by Grandmaster Manuel Pinto de Fonseca. He sounds grand. The buildings were once used as warehouses to store goods unloaded at the docks. The different colours of the doors indicated the types of contents stored inside. For example, yellow represented wheat and blue was for seafood. Well, that seems pretty logical. The warehouse buildings have been beautifully restored and the pathway has been enlarged. Fringed with shady trees and leafy palms, the spacious waterside promenade is lined with trendy restaurants. At 9, visit MUŻA, National Museum of Fine Arts. Malta's National Museum of Fine Arts is housed in a majestic palace, the Auberge d'Italie, that was originally a residence for the Knights of Malta. The monumental staircase at the entrance makes a grand impression, worthy of Valletta's finest art collection. The museum's collection represents important works of Maltese art from the 12th century to the 20th century, as well as noteworthy pieces by other European artists. There is an excellent assortment of works by the famous artist of Malta, Mattia Preti, who was born in Calabria in southern Italy. His most renowned work on display here is the Baptism of Christ painting. The museum also displays a few masterpieces by Italian artist Guido Reni and the exceptional Judith and Holfer Ness painting by Valentin de Boulogne. Another exquisite painting that stands out in the collection is the early Impressionist View of the Grand Harbour by J.M.W. Turner. At 8, Collegiate Parish Church of St. Paul's, Shipwreck. An important landmark in Valletta, the domed church of St. Paul's, Shipwreck, is one of the oldest churches in Malta, dating back to the 1570s. The church is devoted to the father of Christianity in Malta, the Apostle St. Paul. As befits a church dedicated to Malta's patron saint, the interior is sumptuous and houses venerated relics. Pope Pius VII donated the most precious relic, the block upon which St. Paul was said to have been beheaded, as well as what is believed to be part of his wrist bone. Visitors should take time to admire the church's ceiling frescoes, which depict St. Paul's brief sojourn in Malta and were painted at the turn of the century. The main altarpiece displays a painting of St. Paul and St. Luke in a scene of the shipwreck. This work was painted by Matteo Perez d'Alessio in 1580. The church's marvellous gilded wooden statue of St. Paul is paraded through the streets of Valletta on February 10th every year. This date commemorates the day St. Paul's shipwreck occurred and is celebrated with much festivity. Next up at 7, Manoel Theatre, one of the oldest theatres in Europe. This magnificent little theatre was commissioned in 1731 by Antonio Manuel de Villena, Grandmaster of the Knights of Malta, to meet the local demand for operas, pageants and theatrical performances. With this distinguished heritage, the Manoel Theatre ranks among the oldest theatres in Europe. 1731? The lavishly decorated auditorium features gilded box seats and plush velvet chairs. Every seat in the house offers a good view and the acoustics of the Oval Room are excellent. Visitors may take a guided tour or a self-guided tour with an audio guide. Throughout the year, the Manoel Theatre hosts performances including music concerts and classic opera. For tourists, one of the most delightful things to do in Valletta is attend an evening performance in this sensational historic setting. In January, the Manoel Theatre hosts a 2-week Baroque festival featuring the music of Vivaldi and Bach. Next up at 6, Casa Rocca Piccola, an aristocratic Maltese home. For a unique insight into Malta's heritage, tourists can visit the ancestral home of an aristocratic Maltese family who still lives here. Just past the Grandmaster's palace, this 16th century palace was built for Don Pietro la Rocca, one of the Knights of Malta. The current owners are the 9th Marquis and Marchioness de Piro. Visitors can take a guided tour to see the palace's elegant interior, including 2 dining rooms, a bedroom, the salons and the small family chapel. One of the rooms displays a family tree that traces their noble lineage back several generations. The rooms are decorated with antique 16th century furniture, Murano glass chandeliers imported from Venice and crystal chandeliers from Bohemia. In the Sala Grande, there is a distinctive portable chapel. On wheels, maybe? A cabinet crafted from black lacquer with an altar inside that was designed for personal devotion. The palace features a charming courtyard garden, typical of Mediterranean architecture. Also within the property is an inviting restaurant, La Ghiara, which serves authentic regional Sicilian cuisine. The restaurant is open for lunch and dinner. Several of the palace bedrooms have been renovated for use as bed and breakfast accommodations. Breakfast is served on the courtyard garden's sunny terrace or in a cosy room that looks out onto the courtyard. And now, next up at 5, Upper Barrakka Gardens and Military Ceremonies. The picturesque Upper Barrakka Gardens encircle part of the city's old fortifications built on Valletta's highest point. The peaceful and shady gardens are beautifully laid out with fountains, flower beds, rows of archways and statues of prominent historical figures, including Winston Churchill. There are multiple viewpoints from different outlooks around the garden, offering awe-inspiring panoramas of the Grand Harbour. It's possible to see across to the towns of Vittoriosa, Cospicua and Calcara. The level below the gardens is the Saluting Battery, a former bastion which is lined with military cannons. This space is now used for outdoor weddings and ceremonial events, without the cannons. A traditional gun salute ceremony takes place every day at noon on the Saluting Battery, performed by members of the Malta Heritage Society dressed in authentic British artillery uniforms. A tribute to Valletta's military history, this ceremony includes firing the cannons as a salute. Tips for tourists. The Upper Barrakka Gardens is next to Castile Place. To arrive here, go to the Victoria Gate and turn left past the Church of St. Mary of Jesus onto St. Ursula Street. The entrance to the Upper Barrakka Gardens is at the end of the street. There is also an elevator at the foot of St. Barbara Bastion that goes up 60 metres to the Upper Barrakka Gardens. At 4, National Museum of Archaeology. The National Museum of Archaeology is housed in the former Auberge de Provence, the historic residence of the Knights originating from the Provence region in France. The building dates to 1571 and is a wonderful example of Baroque architecture. The Grand Salon is especially noteworthy, with its richly painted walls and wood-beamed ceiling. The museum's exceptional archaeology collection tells the story of Malta through a chronological presentation. Exhibits include prehistoric artifacts and architectural elements found at megalithic sites, as well as ancient Roman objects and medieval antiquities. The museum is renowned for its prehistoric collection, an extensive array of artifacts from the Maltese islands' megalithic temples. These Neolithic-era archaeological finds include 6,000 to 7,000-year-old pottery, ornaments, altars, limestone statuettes, terracotta bowls and cult utensils. The time periods represented by the collection span the prehistoric era, continuing until the Phoenician period of antiquity, the 4th century BC. A noteworthy piece from the Phoenician gallery is the bronze Horus and Anubis pendant. This pendant features the Egyptian gods believed to deliver divine assistance in the afterlife. One room contains models of the 5 best-preserved temples. The headless fat statues of the Tarxian temples are displayed here. A small room houses the Sleeping Lady, considered a masterpiece of prehistoric art. This tiny figurine of a woman lying on a couch reveals the expression and emotion of centuries ago. An expression from centuries ago. Fascinating! At 3, cruise around the Grand Harbour. Valletta owes much of its military success to its strategic location on the Grand Harbour. The enormous harbour could dock its battleships and still keep invaders out by closing off the entrance. The entire harbour is surrounded by massive fortifications, bastions and defensive towers. This formidable setting was the scene of the Great Siege of 1565, the most famous event in Malta's history. Led by Grandmaster Jean de Valletta, the knights heroically defeated the ruthless Ottoman Turk invaders. Today, the Grand Harbour allows entry of large commercial ships, ocean liners and cruise ships. The harbour branches off into smaller creeks, shaped like a multi-pronged fork. In these small ports, there are many yacht marinas and boat docks. These ports around the Valletta Grand Harbour provide enough docks for thousands of boats, making it one of the largest marinas in the world. The entire Grand Harbour area encompasses a semicircle of densely populated little towns, including Calcara, Vittoriosa, Cospicua, Senglea, Piccola and Massa. Just across from Valletta, the towns of Vittoriosa, Cospicua and Senglea, known as the Three Cities, were the original settlement of the Knights. These towns are filled with historical monuments such as Auberge of the Knights, beautiful Baroque churches and important military forts. The best way for tourists to discover the Grand Harbour is by taking a guided boat tour that includes commentary about the sites. Boat cruises depart from Sliema, a seaside town located across the Marsamxett harbour from Valletta, a short bus or drive away. And now, at number 2, Grandmaster's Palace and Armory. Valletta's most monumental building, the Grandmaster's Palace, stands in the centre of Palace Square, which is often used for traditional ceremonies. Grandmaster Fra Pietro del Monte commissioned the palace in the 16th century as a residence for the Knights of Malta. Part of the building is now used as a presidential palace, serving as the office for the President of Malta. The rest of the building is open to the public as a museum. Tourists enter through an impressive courtyard, which leads upstairs to grandiose hallways with lavish 18th century Baroque ceiling paintings. The enormous palace staterooms are richly decorated with gilded mouldings and works of art, such as a series of murals that illustrates a complete narration of the Great Siege of 1565. The Hall of the Ambassadors, also known as the Red Room, is adorned with portraits of the Grandmasters who led the knights to victory. One of the paintings depicts the dignified-looking Grandmaster Jean de Valletta, founder of the city of Valletta. The palace armory displays the knights' armour and weapons, swords, bows, firearms and cannons, dating from the 15th century to the 18th century. This collection reveals that the Knights of Malta were not ordinary soldiers, they were aristocratic warriors equipped with the most elaborate armour and weapons that money could buy. Some of the exhibits allow visitors to feel the actual weight of the helmets. And finally, to even top that, at number 1, St. John's Co-Cathedral. St. John's Co-Cathedral reflects the wealth and importance of the Knights of Malta, who protected Europe and the Catholic faith from attacks by the Ottoman Turks in the 16th century. This cathedral, with its opulent, flamboyant Baroque interior, was built as a symbol of the Knights' success. The nave features opulently decorated, ostentatiously gilded walls and gorgeous ceiling paintings by Mattia Preti, Malta's most famous painter. The most renowned artwork in the church is the beheading of St. John the Baptist by Caravaggio in the oratory. The various chapels of St. John's Co-Cathedral reflect the different langues, regions of the Knights of Malta who hailed from many different countries in Europe. Among the 8 chapels are a few must-see highlights. The Chapel of the Langue de Aragon, the region of Catalonia and Navarre in Spain, features Mattia Preti's painting of St. George on a white stallion after slaying a dragon. The Chapel of the Langue of Italy displays the famous work of St. Jerome writing by Caravaggio. After visiting St John's Co-Cathedral, and surely you'd remember it all, tourists can walk down Republic Street to explore the area around Palace Square on the way to the next attraction, the Grandmaster's Palace. This area has many quaint shops, cafes and restaurants. A great place to stop is the famous establishment Cafe Cordina, 244 Republic Street, a fancy cafe that serves traditional Maltese pastries along with coffee and tea. And there you have the top 10 rated attractions and things to do in Valletta. Did you like what you saw? Let us know in the comments down below. Share this video with your friends and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more fantastic travel guides. That's all for now, until next time.